Every so often, a smartphone comes along with so many features. Even the jaded, fickle, detail-obsessed tech media can't help but be impressed, mostly. But how many features are too many? How much customization is too cumbersome? How much Samsung is too Samsung? And does any of it really matter? These are the tough questions we're tackling on this special edition episode of the Pocket Now Weekly, the once-a-week podcast from PocketNow.com where we discuss smartphones, tablets, and the state of mobile technology in 2013. And today, we're talking Samsung Galaxy S4. I'm Michael Fisher, Senior Editorial Director at Pocket Now, and I'm joined today by Senior Editor Taylor Martin. Good morning to you, sir.
Hey, everybody.
Or Cleveland Brown.
Yes.
And, oh, God, I'm glad you finally did that. And Chief News Editor, back on the show after a very long absence, Stephen Shank. Welcome back to the Weekly, sir.
Thank you. How's it going? And that was inspired, by the way, Taylor.
That was. Taylor, you do the Cleveland Brown impersonation better than anyone I've ever heard. This episode of the Weekly brought to you by Fox, by Seth MacFarlane's Comedy Hour. You could be a stand-in. You could be a voice stand-in for Mike. What's his name? Mike. It starts with an H. Mike Henry. That's his name. Oh. Anyway,
I thought it was me, and I just didn't know it.
What?
Nothing. So my schizophrenia, all three.
Mm-hmm.
And we're off the rails already, folks.
And this is why they call me the anti-topic.
The anti-topic strikes again. Well, we have some. That's okay, because we have some things to talk about that are not specifically Galaxy S4 related. Taylor and Stephen and I had a frickin' 10-minute discussion about standing desks before we came on the air. And awesome. I understand you've changed your setup a little bit, Taylor. And Taylor Martin, if you have not seen his videos at Pocket Now, you haven't been watching Pocket Now, because some commenter on one of my videos was like, Pocket Now is becoming the Taylor Martin show. And I was like, yes, yes.
Pretty much, I get that comment a lot. Where's Michael? We need Brandon man.
Yeah, every single. Oh man, for the first 2 months I was at Pocket Now, every single comment was like, "Where's Brandon Miniman? Get rid of this guy."
Yeah. You got to earn them, man.
I know. Yeah, you do have to win them over slowly.
I only get two types of content or comments. Wow, it's. I haven't taken a sip of my coffee yet.
Maybe do that.
Yeah, sibilance.
Yeah, so I get two types of comments, and that's where's Michael Fisher, where's Brandon Miniman, or your hands are freaking huge.
So, that's what happens when you. My hands will get that way. I've actually taken steps to frame my hands properly, because the depth of field on the camera that I use it does something weird. So if I'm holding a phone in the shot, if I'm not careful, it looks like I have this big meaty palm. And that just kind of wraps around the front of the phone. Now, you don't have giant hands, Taylor. I've shaken your hand.
Well, I have a giant meaty palm, and then my camera makes it look like I have a giant meaty palm on top of a giant meaty palm.
Awesome.
So my hand, the first comment I got that was kind of like that was right after the S4 was announced. It was, I think, the next day. I did a video with the Note 2, and everybody's like, "Is that the S4? How do you have the S4 already?"
Why? Because your hands are just so huge?
Yeah, my hands made the Note 2 look like the S4, apparently.
Yeah.
And I still get that comment now, is that the S4?
I say you just embrace this thing, put on some of those green, the foam Hulk hands,
yes,
and do a review like that, see how many comments you get.
I had an idea like that a couple years ago, Hulk reviews, but I never went through with it.
So
durability matters.
Speaking of the Note 2 as it relates to the S4, it's funny because I did one of those comparison videos this week, is Galaxy S4 versus Note 2, and I found I had to do camera tricks. The Note 2 is such a tricky beast to film because it's tough to represent authentically how big the Note 2 really is in the hand compared to the S4. So I had to do these camera tricks where I was I had them next to each other, and I do have them next to each other in a couple shots, so if you want to measure it, you can see it, but the camera just does something funny, where it just doesn't look, the size disparity doesn't look as extreme as it really is.
Yeah, I had the same problem with the first and the Nexus 7, or Nexus 4. Whoa.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because they're similar in size, but not really. There's a big difference, and then on camera, they looked almost identical in size.
Yeah. It's so you have to have a little finesse in the camera, and I want to get to talking about the S4.
Does the camera still add 10 pounds to phones?
Yeah, no, it does something weird, and it depends on the camera. And to steal a friend's joke, it depends on how many cameras are actually on you. But yeah, no, I don't know. It's I enjoy trying to find ways around how the camera messes things up. But I want to talk S4. And you guys want to talk S4, and it's
do we?
Do we? That's exactly the question, right? This is the problem. I don't want the fact that I've been spending too much time with the Galaxy S4 to further to further incite flames from the fanboys, which are completely unavoidable. But I've been kind of comment moderating very heavily on all of our Galaxy S4 content, and so I'm kind of more burned out on Samsung Defenders than I am on on the device itself, because it's so funny. Like there's so much I like about this device. So let's actually get into it. This is I've got one in the booth with me. The other one is charging, and I'm running another battery test on it. You guys have read the review. You've seen the comparisons and stuff, yeah?
Right.
Oh, sort of.
Okay.
I've seen the headlines.
You got the gist of it.
Right. Okay.
I saw the pictures, and that's all that counts, right?
That's exactly
It's a
right.
phone of
That's why
some
we do
kind,
things.
right?
Right. Yeah. Oh, it's the Galaxy S3, isn't it? So I want to, because you haven't been on the air in a long time, Stephen. I miss your voice. I want to know kind of your thoughts on the S4 in general, and how it relates to the rest of the market in these crazy times.
Before you start, I also want to note one thing. In Tony's post last night that he made for all of us, where we all voiced our opinions, HTC One versus S4.
Right.
Steven was the only one out of 8 to choose the S4. So
with some caveats there.
Yeah, there were. Steven was
it wasn't
very
a straight shot
responsible
either.
There. Yeah,
it wasn't a straight shot.
So this was a collaborative piece, listeners. If you haven't seen it, I was surprised to see it post. It posted around 4 a.m. my time. Tony really went early on it. I was like, oh, cool. Okay, wow, let's check this out. And all of the editors on the team, I think it was all of us, right? Yeah, contributed like 2 paragraphs and explaining why which one we would choose, because that's the real question of the entire like decade. Not really, but it's the question of the year in smartphones, like HTC One or Galaxy S4. Which one is for you? And yeah, Steven's answer was definitely the most interesting. I was like, actually, I have to be honest, I was a little dismayed that it wasn't a more even balance, because I'm glad that everyone was honest. Don't get me wrong. I just wish that for the sake of the appearance of balance, yeah, for a little bit of PR, that we had more SGS4 like proponents on the team, and nobody's really against it. But I think when it comes down to the choice, whatever, you can read our explanations on the post. But Stephen, yeah, why did you give the answer that you did, and what are your thoughts on the S4 in general?
I think the problem with the S4, it's just not very cool. I mean, it's a fine phone. It did pretty much what we expected Samsung to do, spec-wise and everything, but it's hard to get excited about it. Whereas the One is, I mean, it may be rehashing some old ideas, but ones that never necessarily got the attention they might deserve, and putting them all together in one package. It's fun. It's compelling. And I mean, the only reason I was even giving the S4 more consideration than the other guys is I am a big fan of micro SD and removable battery. I know for some of you, Taylor, you were saying that micro SD, take it or leave it. But it bugs me that I don't have that on like my Nexus 4. And with the One, I can see that becoming a problem, especially if we're treating it as a phone like, phone enthusiasts like us are just going to use it for a while, we're always going to be upgrading to the new hotness when it arrives, then that's fine. I mean, get a new phone with new storage, fresh battery. But if you're going to be sticking with it for the long haul, I can really see the lack of those options in the One becoming a problem another year, 2 years down the line. So maybe the S4 is just going to be more flexible in the long run, even if it's less mouth-watering.
Sure. And that's very well put. And can we talk about those 2 features, I think, right now? Because that is so often I find myself discussing devices, comparing devices, and Samsung, to its eternal credit, always busts out the gate with like, yeah, it's a Samsung phone, so at this point it's almost a given that it's going to have a removable battery and it's going to have expandable storage. That improves the utility of its devices like tenfold. But it's funny to me because I thought I was in the minority. I certainly thought I was in the minority when I wrote an editorial to this effect almost a year ago when I said, listen, these things aren't as big a deal to me, and I don't think they're as big a deal to many people. And then everyone there was a huge backlash. But that's the tack that HTC is certainly taking. And I just don't know how much they matter to regular consumers. I sometimes find myself wondering how much a regular consumer knows about micro SD even existing in smartphones.
I think they're not a big deal until you actually need them. It's a feature that, if your battery is not losing its capacity, if you're getting through a charge per day, no problem, it's not going to matter. But as soon as you hit that wall, all of a sudden, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
I wrote an article a few weeks back, and or maybe a month ago now, and we've talked about it before. But my problem with expandable storage is that, for me, it does nothing. The only thing I can store on it are pictures and documents, and those are the two things that really don't take up that much storage. Granted, pictures are taking up more and more storage, but I can't store my music on it because I listen to Spotify, and that's where all of my music comes from.
Right.
And Jaime was telling us that, you can move your Spotify files over to an SD card, but for the sake of saying, I listen to Spotify, I don't listen to my own music necessarily. My movies, I rent them or I buy them from the Play Store or I watch them on Netflix. And
so when it comes down to replacing all the milliamp hours that you're draining watching these things on your device, you carry around a variety of external battery packs, right?
Yes, an arsenal, if you will.
Yeah. So you're just like a walking lithium polymer cell.
Yeah, like people see me at the coffee shop that I go to regularly, and they're like, "Hey, can I charge my phone?" Like, there's an outlet here. You have your computer.
Is there... That's awesome.
We see the wall of that coffee shop so much.
Yeah, that red thing.
We should get some sponsorship going here.
I know. Just like I should get sponsored by Gunnar Optics, right?
Yeah, my CPA owns the place. So we're close friends. I'm close friends with everybody who owns it and works there. So, by
the way, the tax people I sent my tax stuff to 2 weeks ago haven't returned an email in 14 days, Taylor. I might have to talk to your CPA.
Oh, that's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's not cheap. That's
okay. That's okay. I'm in trouble, so that's all right. So here's the thing. The utility that the S4 brings in terms of that battery and micro SD card, I was going to say can't be understated, but they overstated rather. But they really can be, because I think consumers don't care as much about removable memory as the tech masses do.
I can agree with that.
Yeah, but the battery, of course, the battery is something that's completely different, and that's a feather in Samsung's cap for real across all consumer categories, I think. But
yeah. I'm holding my tongue on all the battery talk because I've got an article in the making, or not in the making, I guess scheduled for next week about this kind of battery packs versus removable batteries.
Oh, you're doing the same editorial I did a year ago. I bet you will do it better.
I don't know.
Well, we always write the same pieces anyway. Longer, yeah.
That's a fair shot.
But longers are kind of better.
You're right. It's like my review proved, 4,700 words or whatever it was. But I wonder about how these features, like how this kind of feature approach translates to the S4 as a whole, because. Yes, Samsung has included these things, this expandability to, appeal to a broad range of power users. And is the S4 a power user's device? I mean, I don't know, Stephen. I think you might not be the best person to ask on this, because I know that you're not a giant fan of rooting your devices, right?
No, I love that. I tend not to because I'm lazy. But philosophically, I am right on point there.
No, me too. I agree. We're in the same boat. But I don't know. I feel like there are people out there who are going to go and pick up the S4 because of the global version's octa-core processor, which we still have not played with yet.
It's not octa-core.
Well, no, it is.
It is.
It's dual quad-core.
It's lots of cores.
Yeah, it's more than
8
4.
cores don't run simultaneously,
right.
And that's what. Yeah.
But
we'll get on that later.
Right. Yeah.
But what in terms of it having the greatest specs, or some of the greatest specs, most of the greatest specs, it's like what I said with the Optimus G Pro. You can throw every awesome specification into a phone, but that doesn't necessarily make it the best phone. Specifications are only half the battle. And this sounds crazy, and it's not because it's HTC, but I personally would carry the first over the S4.
Holy, what?
I would.
Interesting.
That is that is the statement of the morning right there. That's the quote of the podcast. Why?
What if the S4 was the size of the first?
Whoa, I muted my mic. It's not the...
I thought you were just dumbstruck by the question.
I was clearing my throat, and then somebody asked me a question. No, I wrote the article last night, and my last statement in the article, I just have to read it because I want to read it. Great. It says, we're loading here, Apple, despite what you've heard, size matters. And it's... The HTC First is too small for me, but I would carry it over the S4 because I'm a sucker for design. Absolutely. And that's one reason I didn't like the Optimus G Pro. It's like a ripoff of a ripoff of a ripoff, and it's just
we talked about it.
Yeah.
Now, do you think the 5-inch G Pro might be a more interesting phone? The one in Japan?
I haven't actually seen that one. Does it have better build quality, or is it?
I assume it's the exact same thing, but just slightly smaller.
No,
it probably is. Yeah.
I don't mind the size. Like, I like the Note 2, but the Note 2 is just kind of killing me because I don't like the build. Like, I like the phone itself. Everything on the outside is awful. I hate that.
So, can we talk about build quality? Because Taylor, I don't want to step on your whatever you were talking about there, but I do want to talk.
I killed every one of your segues last week.
You did every single one. You're the segue slayer.
I almost did it earlier too. So I
want to talk about the build though. I really do, because I have a Note 2 as well, Taylor, as you know, and I love the Note 2. I still, every time I kind of go back to it, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember why I like you. Like, it just does everything so well, and it doesn't care that it's a big dude. You know, It's like it's just, God, it's great. And the S4 has taken some cues from the Note 2, but it's made them better visually in the hardware. And actually, when you look at the S4, it doesn't look bad. I mean, this kind of thickened. That's the word. This thickened mid plate. This silver kind of faux metal running the perimeter of the S4 looks good. It makes the phone look thicker than it actually is, but it also looks high quality. The midnight black finish looks really good. The texturing under the hyperglaze looks really good. And even when you pick it up, it's so light that you don't even care about it being light. And that'll make some sense in if you remember my feelings about the GS3, which is that this is too light, it feels chintzy, it feels like a toy. Well, the S4 is only maybe 3 to 5 grams lighter, but that small difference makes it so amazing that it's kind of like lifting the iPad Mini and being like, oh wow, this feels fake. So the Galaxy S4 it has some cool stuff going on for it in terms of build, but I agree with you, Stephen, that it's not as exciting as the one because I think if the S3 and S2 and even Galaxy S never existed, if this was Samsung's first flagship Android device, smartphone, we would be very excited about the S4. It's just that it's very familiar to us. So, Taylor, what do you think about whatever I just said?
Well, I agree with the fact that if none of the other ones existed, that yes, we would probably be excited over the S4, or some of us. I didn't get excited over the S3. I didn't really get excited over the original Galaxy S and not the S2 either. I didn't own the Galaxy S or the S2, and I didn't get excited over any of them, and I don't know why. It's not that I don't like Samsung. I do, but the design, and it's just kind of, it's never appealed to me at all. But the fact of the matter is, all of the other ones did exist. And this isn't the first or second time we've seen this design. We've seen it a million times. Every Galaxy device has the same device or the same design. And mind you, the Galaxy Nexus had it too.
I don't know if I can go with you on that, man. I had the Galaxy Nexus, and I loved its design so hard.
I did too, but it's really simply an offshoot of the same exact design.
No, the Galaxy Nexus had the thing of the tapered, the convex screen. It didn't have any buttons on the front. It was teardrop shaped on the back. I think the Galaxy Nexus was actually one of Samsung's high points.
It was, but if you look at the sides of the devices and even the backs and ignore that it's tapered, it's the same thing.
Yeah,
But something about the
If you ignore the parts that aren't the same, it's totally the same.
yeah, if you ignore everything about it, they're exactly the same. No, I agree that the Nexus was different and I liked it, but the design has just been rehashed over and over. It's just
so. This is why I was not as excited about the 4 when it was announced, because I will take issue with you not just on your Galaxy Nexus statement, but on the Galaxy S3. Because the Galaxy S3 was a real departure for them. Now, I understand. Listen, I understand. You line all these up, and an average person's going to be like, yeah, they all look the same. But the S3 was a really significant departure in that they went to that, Palm Pre place of the inspired by nature, but rounded river pebble thing. Mm-hmm. And whether you liked it or not, I think you had to respect Samsung for going a different direction with their line. And maybe we kind of expected them to show a similar amount of boldness this year, and they didn't. And that's frustrating. Now, the Galaxy S3 felt very cheap in the hand to me, but it won me over in large part initially because of the features we were promised. And I want to get into that a little bit, but I want to make sure that I'm not stepping on Steven, who I didn't know if he had a response to the design question.
Yeah, I think that part of the problem might be that in this industry especially, we have this obsession on moving forward. And that's important. We want to see everything improve. But we're always focused on companies, what the growth of their sales are, not what the actual sales figures are. And I think that translates over into design here. If something works for Samsung, and clearly it has the sales figures to back this up, why would it change it?
Right.
We want something new, but if it's working, why fix what ain't broken?
Exactly, and I used that very phrase in the opening lead-in to my review. And from a business perspective, that does make sense. But I think you make a very good point. We are future obsessed, and maybe that makes a bit of sense. But I'm looking at the
consumer market is separated from the business side.
Yes. Absolutely. But it is still important that you excite people. It is still important that you inspire them. And that's what the S3 did for me last year, because I sat there. I at the time, it's funny, history was repeating itself a little bit. At the time, I was still in love with the 1X because it was the device that I had just reviewed. It was actually the first device I ever reviewed. And I loved its build. I loved blah, 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 blah. And Samsung comes out with this S3, and I hadn't really paid much attention to Samsung for a little while at that point. And what captivated me about the S3 was the just avalanche of features Samsung dumped on everybody. Do you remember when the S3 was announced like that? Everyone at the live blogging from the event was like, what is going on? I cannot keep up with all the features Samsung is just throwing at us. There's a video for each feature. And we know how weird Samsung events get. But that was the thing that I loved about the S3, was that there were so many incredible features that sounded just too good to be true.
I mean, the S4 has a ton of new features. Is it just that they aren't as interesting?
No, it is not that they're not as interesting. They're just as interesting. But my point is that Samsung is doing the same exact thing it did with the S3. It's announcing a bunch of awesome features that sound too good to be true. And a lot of them, sorry, guys, a lot of them are too good to be true. Okay, I want to say that Smart Stay. Go ahead. Was that you, Stephen?
No, that was me. Yeah. I was just going to say the king of interrupting you. I was just going to say that a lot of them are gimmicky. There are things that don't appeal to me, or even a lot of people that.
Okay, all right. I get you. But conceptually speaking, some of these have to appeal to you, right? Because like Smart Stay, when Smart Stay was announced, I thought that was the coolest idea in the world. The screen, I had been dealing with devices for years who turned off the screen in the middle of me reading a book or in the middle of me reading a web page because the timer went off and it was too stupid to know that I was still looking at it. So Smart Stay, brilliant idea.
But it solves a problem and breaks another.
Oh yeah,
you already have more battery life. So you're keeping the display on longer, which you're going to do anyway, but you're also running the camera. And that's
okay. All right,
it's counterintuitive.
Yeah, but no, it's not counter. That's a sacrifice that I would have been willing to make. My problem with Smart Stay is it didn't work right in the number one condition that you wanted it to work. It didn't work right when you were reading in bed in the dark. Yeah. And when you were doing anything in the dark, it couldn't tell you were looking at the screen. And I asked at the Samsung Note 8.0 event if they had fixed that, and they were like, no, we didn't make any changes to Smart Stay. I'm like, okay. And then at the S4, not only did they not fix it, they introduced an entire suite of features that criminally infringe on what I perceive to be the good customer experience. they not only retained Smart Stay, they built upon it with features that made me even more excited to try them. Like Smart Pause. You're watching a video and you turn your head away, it pauses the video. That is smart as hell. Doesn't work unless the lighting is great. Smart Scroll, all that stuff just doesn't work right. Go ahead.
Just a quick little tip for your screen backlight, cutting out. Hit the power button when you're not using it and bump the screen on time to like a minute or 2 minutes.
Yeah.
What I've learned to do when I'm reading something is just leave my thumb on the display and scroll a little bit and keep reading and scroll a little bit and keep reading, and the display doesn't time out.
Right.
I've learned to cope with the way things were before.
You've learned
Maybe
to
I'm
cope.
just old.
That's the whole idea. Features are supposed to free us from these,
From coping
hacks. Yeah,
exactly.
But
You're
they're
not supposed
hacks
to have to cope.
themselves.
Right. So that's the thing. So Samsung has really overpromised and underdelivered on a lot of these features. And you know what? If you're going to put them in the phone and just kind of not say anything about them and let people discover them for themselves, first of all, yes, that's a dumb idea. No company would ever do that. But second of all, even dumber is making a big deal out of features that do not work as you say they will. That's stupid.
Do you think Samsung is unaware of these failings, or simply is this like an Apple antenna gate thing? We're holding it wrong, and it's our fault. The conditions aren't ideal.
No, I think it's somewhere between there. I really don't think that Samsung is oblivious to this. I think that they are. I think that they're doing that thing where I'm trying to think of a proper analogy where it's like, well, I've come home from school and I've got homework in 6 different classes, and I really don't want to finish the job on any of them. But if I do about half my homework for all 6, at least I won't get in that much trouble. Like it's kind of that kind of thing, rather than just like focusing on one or two things that it can really, really do a good job on.
They throw something at a wall.
Yeah.
See what sticks.
Right.
that is their tactic.
But I get that, and I understand that that's their thing. It's just that I can't tell you how frustrated I am that they activate my imagination. They get me salivating, thinking about what life could be like because of their awesome ideas. I can't overstate it. They have incredibly cool ideas at Samsung. It's just the execution is off.
The way I imagine that they come up with these things is they have this huge, giant brainstorming session, maybe an all-hands-on-deck meeting or something like that.
100,000 employees in the cafeteria.
They're like, give us your ideas. What would you like your phone to do? And everyone within, realistic, I guess, obviously a phone can't cook your breakfast. Maybe it could if you overclock the processor enough. But they take these hundreds of ideas and they do every single one of them. They don't pick the best. They do them all.
Right.
It's like no good idea left undone.
Right. Yeah.
And you can't. My point is, you can't do everything great. A former boss told me, you do a lot of really good things, but he said, but you don't do everything great because you do so many different things.
Jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Focus on a couple things, get them right, and stop throwing everything that ever comes to your mind at a wall.
It's a solid point, right? And it feels like, and this is the point in the comments where we're at time code, whatever, 40 minutes or something like that, or 30 minutes, and like people are going to be like, oh, here comes the Samsung ripping session. And I think that my real point of irritation comes from the fact that if this stuff worked well, this really would be a phone I would never leave alone. But why do I want to pan around in my gallery photos by moving the phone around and knocking my coffee off the table just to look around in a photo,
Those motion things are the worst implementation I've ever seen. Moving your widget from one page to another rather than just moving your finger. Move the whole phone.
That's a fascinating thing, and that's one of those really extreme cases of where that it's like, why did this make it to production? Why does anybody need this?
This sounds like that
inaccurate. It's hard to use. It's like that teeter game where you have a ball on a plane and you have to send it through a maze.
It's like that April Fool's keyboard joke.
Yes, exactly.
Wait, the April Fool's keyboard joke.
Swift key. It was Swift key tilt.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah,
And you remember the teeter game that used to come on HTC phones?
right. But okay, hold on.
You had to type with that ball and tilt your phone.
Let me talk about something with you guys. AirView. Stephen, have you had much experience with the Note 2? I know I was supposed to ask this earlier, but I didn't.
No, I have the first Note, but I just barely looked at the Note 2.
Okay. And the first Note, refresh my memory, does not have AirView. Is that correct? It doesn't let you
That
cover.
is incorrect.
Oh,
it has it.
It has.
Yeah.
Oh no, it does. I remember seeing the little floaty thing. I didn't own the Note 1, so I'm a little.
It does not with the old firmware I have on it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, it required a software update to enable. Is that right? Whatever the case, AirView is something I really came to love on the Note 2, where you take the S Pen out, you hover it over the screen, and the thing I used it for most often was, man, I'm going to use my Note 2 after this podcast. I'm really excited about going back to that phone for it.
All riled up.
Yeah, but the thing I loved about it is you could hover the S Pen over the bottom of a web page or a Twitter feed or whatever, and it would scroll for you. You didn't have to do the flick thing. They didn't. Either I didn't find it, or they didn't port that to S Penless AirView on the Galaxy S4. So one of the best features of AirView didn't work. Yeah, scrolling. Now, maybe I didn't find it in my exhaustive tour of all of the movement options on the Galaxy S4. I'm sure somebody will come out of the woodwork and say, look, it's this really obvious thing. And
yeah, and even if it's not there, I mean, the hardware is in place. It could be always enabled in software at some future point.
Right. And if it is there, it needs to be more obvious. But the thing is, the ports are even incomplete.
But you don't need to hover. You can just swipe your hand over the whole entire phone and scroll.
Oh, that's right. Yes, you can just wave in front of it, and it's like, how is this? Anyway, yeah.
Now, if you had a whole desk setup and your computer was fit with that would be amazing. Like, I'm getting Leap Motion in May. I cannot wait because it's amazing.
Tell us what Leap Motion is.
Are you kidding me?
No,
I'm kidding me. It's gesture-based input for computers.
Oh, yeah.
So I can sit here and write in midair like I'm writing with a pen and sign my name on a document on my computer. It's kind of crazy.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's cool. But I don't understand the need for it on a phone. I understand there is at least one use case. There is at least one. When you're cooking or washing dishes or doing something with your hands, changing oil in your car, it doesn't matter. You lay your phone down, and if you need to scroll through something, you just wave your hand over the screen. Cool.
That's
I
awesome.
just gum up my phone screen.
Right.
Yeah, that works. That's awesome and great. But in the same respect, shouldn't we just coat all of our phones in the nano coating and not worry about it?
Probably, yeah. And all phones should be waterproof, and all phones should be unbreakable. And
I think we should get back to this idea of cooking stuff with our phone and replace the Kevlar on the razor with Teflon.
Yeah.
So the eggs will just slide right off. This is $1 million idea.
Let's build a special edition HTC One with an S4 Pro in it, and just let it cook right up. Here's the thing. I have a statement to make about Air Gesture. Taylor, you were absolutely right, and I need to take a break from bitching about Samsung to say, oh, damn it, I gotta go. Oh, damn it, oh no, and now I'm in a swear loop. Son of a b.
Get it out of your system.
I know. All right, 15 minutes in, I got a second section. Hate that. We need a producer.
You like typing with your fist?
Angry at swearing.
You need those green mitts now, the Hulk mitts.
Yeah. No, I want to say that, Taylor, you're right to bring up Air Gesture because that is a cool feature that is implemented fairly well. I'm a little annoyed that I have to get my dirty, crusty hands, if I'm cooking or doing whatever, close to the screen, 3 inches away.
Probably going to fling something on it anyway.
Right, exactly. I wish I could be a little further away, but it is cool when you actually enable it and when you wave your hand aggressively over the phone and it's it kind of drowsily wakes up. It's like, oh, what? Oh, yeah. And the screen brighten. It takes 3 seconds for the screen to brighten. It's like, here's your messages, man. You want to see any of those? No? Okay, I'm going to take them back away. That's cool. And
it's like the stoner roommate on your couch.
It is. Yeah, it's like, you want a grilled cheese?
The Galaxy S4 is a stoner roommate.
Oh, okay, that's cool. Yeah. So, and you don't want to touch the S4 when your hands are greasy because it will retain the grease. So I don't want to turn this into another insult at the S4, but because really, seriously, Air Gesture, some of those features work really well, and that's one of the really cool ones.
Yeah, AirView. Can I jump back to AirView just quickly?
Yeah, of course.
If you
assist.
I felt like you were about to segue, so I had to interrupt you.
Yeah, thanks.
So, I mean, every view on the Note 2 and the original Note was great. I used it, and it would be better if it were universal. Like you could preview anything, like an email in Gmail. There's a way to do that. There's a simple way to do that, but it kind of requires the input from third-party developers. So I understand why it's not universal. Fine. And it works great with an S Pen. But there is no way that I can imagine hovering a finger over something is better than just touching it.
Okay, so I will speak to that.
Yeah, like hovering a S Pen is easy. Like you can guess when you're going to touch the display. Like I don't know because I haven't done it. Is it any easier to just hover your finger, or is it just as easy, or is it ridiculous?
It's about the same. It feels less natural because with two hands, the S Pen requires that you have two hands free, but just by its essence, when you are one hand like hover scrolling on the S4, it feels less natural because it's new, right? Because you really have to get used to it. And actually, Sony Ericsson, I think, beat Samsung to this on one of those mid-range Xperias from last year, didn't it?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah. And I remember everyone was making fun of it back then, and like I don't remember who it was, but people were really just having a laugh at the expense of that, calling that a useless feature. I'm like, no, this could be really awesome. Yeah, and on Samsung it could be really awesome too. Taylor, you make a great point. I wish it existed outside the stock apps. Also, I already said this in my feature video, but I got it wrong in the messaging app. But it's annoying because like you hover over certain message threads and it will expand them if the message thread goes off the screen. But if the message is just like okay or hi, then it doesn't need to be expanded. But the phone doesn't respond at all then. So it's like I can't tell you how many times a day I go up into the notifications bar and see if AirView is turned on or not.
Now, this might be getting better in the future because right now this is pretty hardware limited, only on very, very few models. But I'm pretty sure that a gesture event is built into Android at this point. So if more manufacturers start supporting it, we'll see more apps be able to recognize these things.
Well, that would be awesome.
It would be phenomenal.
Yeah.
Gmail especially.
Gmail, absolutely.
And Google Voice. Nothing that ever comes out, everything that's awesome, it never supports Google Voice. It makes me so sad.
Definitely the redheaded stepchild of Google.
It is. It is. Chat heads.
But even more important, though.
Babel might fix it. Who knows?
Babel might. Yeah, actually, it might. But more important than Google Voice, because so many more people use it, and because mobile video is the play of the future, YouTube. All these awesome features that Samsung builds into its video player, like pop-up play and what is it? Smart pause. Like it doesn't work in YouTube. I feel like didn't I hack it to work on pop-up play though? Can you do that off the top of your head, Taylor? Do you remember? Have you done that?
I don't know. I never used it because it didn't work with YouTube, so I didn't try. I just used multi-window and used it that way.
I feel like I did it. I don't know. Somebody out there is just screaming at their headphones like, "Yes, you can do it.
Do that.
You can't do that." Yeah,
shaking their cane at you.
I just found one of my old headlines. Pop-up play on the Galaxy S3 is preposterous, awesome. Yes, agreed. Michael Fisher from June. What were we talking about? We're talking about features. I don't know,
but I feel like I need to give a little disclaimer. I'm like heated about this because I've been discussing this very heatedly with my friend. So the S4 in general. Oh. He's trying to decide between the one and the S4.
The question of the season.
Yeah, and his reason above every other freaking aspect of the phone is that he can hold the phone up to his ear while he's text messaging someone, so he's texting, and just hold it up to his ear and call them.
That is an awesome feature.
That's an awesome feature. Is that a feature that would completely, just hands down, sell you on a phone?
It shouldn't.
I'm like, dude, it takes one tap on the screen, maybe two, to call them.
Right. But
and he's like, 1 or 2 taps, sir. I just hold my phone up to my ear and I call him. I'm going to get that phone. I'm like, oh, God.
So I think
who calls anyone anymore?
Right. There
exactly.
is that, right? But so that is a really good point. actually, because I don't think it's that feature necessarily that's captivating your friend. Now, I don't want to speak for your friend, but I'm going to use him as an archetype and just kind of
it is.
speak to him.
I'll just spoiler. It is. He's got some really stupid logic sometimes.
I understand. But for me, that feature where you're in the middle of a text message, you're like, this is taking too long. I just want to call this person, and you just put the phone to your head and it calls. That not only is convenient in that moment, but I think it does something where it reinforces your perception of the phone as an intelligent companion, a life companion, if you will, and it really makes using the phone more pleasant because you have more confidence that the phone actually knows what you want compared to like a more conventional device. So I get why that would be compelling, and it's one of those many features and that's actually one of the ones that works.
You're justifying his crazy logic.
I am, absolutely, yeah.
You should not condone his.
But no, I think it is important. I think that speaks to what we talked about before, and we won't talk about it again. But that speaks to a really like well thought out feature, executed very well.
Yeah,
and there's that.
Interestingly, the reason he's leaning towards the S4, and he is kind of, sort of, not really, but kind of a Samsung fanboy. But I mean, right now he carries an iPhone, so he is open to other things. But what really is kind of pushing him towards the S4 is that he got the S3 and the 1X. So we got the 1X first, thinking, hey, this thing's going to be awesome, because I talked it up because I thought it was going to be awesome. And it was good, but it wasn't great. It was okay. And the S3 came out, and he also got that, and he fell in love.
Right.
So it's HTC's track record that's really kind of throwing him for a loop. And not saying that he shouldn't like the S4. If he likes it, that's his thing. But his reasonings behind liking it are just funny.
Can I go a little broader here? I kind of want to talk about what the. Oh, all right.
If you insist.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. We'll see you next week. No, so I want to talk about the implications of some of the things we're seeing with Samsung, because Samsung not only, first of all, it didn't change TouchWiz at all. TouchWiz is the same TouchWiz we know and love or hate, depending on your feelings toward cartoony but responsive interfaces. So TouchWiz is still here, but there are more content offerings. There's the Samsung Hub, and Samsung is serious about this. Like, they are offering, this Hub has a movie store, it has a bookstore, it has a music store, it has a TV show store, it has a game store. Tie yourself into it. Right. They want you to use that Samsung account. They want you to buy your apps and your games from them, your content, and the visual language on the Samsung Hub is very different from anything else inside TouchWiz. Some people in the comments have said it's kind of a ripoff of Metro. I don't think it is a ripoff of Microsoft's design style. It is something actually legitimately distinct. It's definitely more hip than TouchWiz is, but that's kind of tertiary or secondary. I am very interested in what Samsung intends to do. Some people are speculating that this is the beginning of a push, or maybe even the middle of a push, that Samsung is in to get away from Android.
Oh, hogwash!
I'm not going to necessarily agree with that, but they have said that they're weighing their options a few years back.
But this is something everyone does. I mean, Sony has their own store on the side. Here, everyone wants to end run Google on the Play Store content. It's not going to work. People change devices. They want to get all their stuff from a source where you can use it on that LG phone you pick up next year. They don't want to get locked in.
That is true, but in the same respect, Sony, HTC, and pretty much all of the other Android manufacturers collectively don't have nearly the mind share or market share Samsung has.
This is true.
They could literally say, we're done, drop the mic and walk away, and they would probably have a significant number of people follow them. Now, it wouldn't be as big as Android, because there are people who use Samsung specifically for Android. But they would not be... They wouldn't fall off the charts, I don't think. I think they would have enough of a following to kind of establish a start.
Yeah, a base, right? That's the question. Yeah. Like, can they start this movement? And we start to see it in some of the public vernacular already. Like, we've talked about this a billion times, but now Android is no longer... it's not Droid that's synonymous with Android, it's Galaxy. And to a greater extent, it's even Samsung. I have people asking me more and more often, regular people from the real world outside of our tech bubble, who are like, "Oh, is that the new Samsung?" Like, "Oh, yeah, I have a Samsung phone." It's like, I'm like, "Okay, we're talking about the iPhone," but it's like, "Yeah, but oh, my Samsung phone." Like, the Android doesn't even enter into the conversation, and Samsung is not doing anything to disabuse that notion. At the Galaxy S4 event, the word Android was not said once.
This reminds me of one of the comments that we got on that piece, getting our opinions on the One versus the GS4. Mm-hmm. Someone mentioned that they thought we were all siding with the One because we don't want to back up Samsung now that it's the popular choice. You want to support the underdog, and I was totally thinking that when I was writing my my opinion in the first place. Are we just ganging up on Samsung because they got so big and powerful?
I don't think so. I'm not. No, because I haven't really cared for their devices for years, personally speaking.
Yeah, I've always been a hater.
So I'm a semi-professional troll myself. Yeah, no, it says right on my Twitter profile that I'm an appreciator of underdogs. So absolutely, I could see how you could draw that conclusion, and I get that completely. And maybe next year, if some amazing confluence of circumstances occurred to throw Samsung in the dumpster, maybe I would be a champion. But I would only be a Samsung champion for that product if the product was incredible to me.
Right.
That's
only going to get behind
crucial thing.
I'm only going to get behind something that's great. I'm not going to just back it for the sake of backing the underdog.
Ever. Completely agreed, yeah.
Ever. And yes, I've been an HTC fan since Android started. My first Android phone was HTC. My second Android phone was HTC. My third was, I think, Motorola. And then HTC. Yeah, I mean, and it's not because I'm a fanboy. They appeal to my needs. They know what I like.
Yeah.
So I go with them. And that's not to say any Galaxy device isn't great. I carried the Note 2 and I loved it. Yeah. I still love it. I still carry it. So it's just... Oh, go ahead.
Well, yeah, HTC...
I don't want to finish.
HTC... don't finish. No, I don't want you to finish. I'm stepping on your non-segue. So HTC is not being as aggressive with this content play because they have more to focus on. They have more to deal with. They just need to get to somewhere in the vicinity of Samsung's success in conventional terms. So they're not really as aggressively pushing this idea, but it interests me that Samsung is devoting so much energy and effort into making the Samsung Hub, making its own sub-ecosystem, and not just that, changing the look of things.
Yes.
I should have asked them about this, but I didn't. They brightened up the dialer. Like the dialer looks like nothing else on the phone. Isn't it weird? Like it's stark white. It is almost featureless. There's almost nothing. It looks like like if Jitterbug made a smartphone. That's what the dialer looks like.
It looks like a Windows phone. Not exactly, but to the extent of the minimalism is what I'm getting at.
Right. It looks like if like, forgive me, it looks like if like a second grader like drew a picture of Windows Phone. That's what it looks like, frankly. But it's interesting because it doesn't look like Android, and nothing. Some very smart people have made this point over and over, and this speaks to what I was saying before, like about Samsung getting away from Android. Nothing in TouchWiz even looks like remotely like a modern version of Android. And it's so jarring when you do experience the occasional raw layer of stock Android, like when you sign into the phone. And it's like, oh, hey, are you a Google user? And I'm like, oh, right, this is what Holo looks like. This is this design language. And it frankly wouldn't surprise me at all in a couple years to see Samsung go Tizen and just leave Android behind. But the question, I agree with you, Stephen, is can they establish enough of an ecosystem for themselves? And I don't think this is a hobby. I really think they're trying to make a play for this.
If they don't do it overnight, like just, bam, we're done with Android, then yeah, they will. If they're like, hey, this is our first Tizen phone, and
which will come out this summer, right?
Yeah, and 6 more, and then they've got a whole lineup of their 50 different screen sizes,
right?
And then they're like, hey, we're done with Android,
right?
These will be our final Android phones. If you want Samsung, go with Tizen. I couldn't see why it wouldn't work. They're not going to walk away with every single Samsung user they have now, which is why it would be stupid to just drop Android. But having a plan B and having it in place before anything ever happens to Android is probably the most forward-thinking, progressive, and self-preserving thought Samsung could possibly have right now. Because they are growing so large.
I see it as just saber rattling. It's making a play to seem more relevant than... I mean, Samsung's a big deal, but it doesn't have to control everything. It's okay for a platform to be controlled by another party. I mean, the PC industry for years was content to have Microsoft turning out Windows. Dell's not trying to make its own operating system. Of course, Dell has seen better days, so maybe it's not the best example in the world, but I don't know.
Can you imagine if we were this adamant about the PC market? Oh, they released a computer that looks exactly like last year's model or last month's model. It's kind of ridiculous how crazy we are about this stuff.
Slightly more appealing shade of beige.
Right.
Yeah.
But it makes sense, Taylor, right?
Seuss.
Like, this is something that you carry with you. This is not something that just sits on your desk. You want something that is on your desk to look pretty, but
I carry
build is more important.
Computer with me almost everywhere I go.
Is it your smartphone?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I answer calls. I just open my MacBook lid and hold it up to my head.
Anyway.
Who doesn't?
There's an image.
I'm glad that we got back to hardware for a second, because I want to just very briefly touch on my favorite accessory right now. Did you guys see my video on the S-View flip cover?
That thing is beautiful.
Check that out.
I will say,
check it out.
Samsung knows how to do accessories. Their flip covers, the best idea ever. Every phone should have a flip cover.
All right. Listen.
Every phone.
This is a multi-point right?
Every phone. I don't know why you're trying to argue with me.
Flip covers are the worst things ever, or were the worst things ever. They were a dumb idea. They were flimsy. They were stupid looking. They were everything bad about everything until this one came out. That is my argument. Because the old ones covered up your camera lens if you folded them back. They covered up your screen when they were closed. You couldn't see anything through them. They were tacky. They were dumb. The phone didn't know whether they were on or off. The S4 flip cover fixes all that. You've got a nice window carved in there. When you close it, you get a little preview with your date and time and your notifications. You can talk with the flip cover closed. Could you do that on the old one?
Yeah.
All right, never mind. And the phone knows when it's open or closed.
Yeah, those are
awesome.
some complaints. Like, you couldn't take a picture. That one was a big one because
Right.
I always found myself holding the Note opposite of how I normally held it in landscape to take a picture because the flip cover would hang down. But it kind of got in the way of how you would hold the phone because it was just really awkward. So, yes, that I understand. And not turning the display on when you flip the cover open, that was also kind of crazy. Why not do that?
Right.
But other than
other than these basic elements.
I mean, I use a flip cover, so to speak, on most of my devices. If I could get one for the Nexus 10 right now, if the Nexus 10 were actually mine, I would.
Yeah.
I've got one on my iPad mini. I would have one on my Nexus 4 if I could.
Yeah.
I don't like cases. Cases with flip covers are not the same thing.
What were you going to say, Steven?
I'm wondering on the S4 flip cover, when you have it open, is it like flush against the phone? Does it sort of resist
Wiggle
being?
around?
So, like when you fold it back and you're using the phone in one hand?
Yeah. Is it flush against the phone, or is it because of the tendency to close, is it sort of buckling a little bit?
It doesn't buckle. No, not necessarily. It definitely wants to be. It neither wants to be open nor closed. It kind of wants to be at a 45-degree angle, which is annoying. Which is why it should have a magnet in it. Which is why it's not worth the $70 that Samsung is suggesting as the retail price. Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But, there are some retailers already selling it for much cheaper. I think Clove has it for like €40 or something like that. But,
Only.
Yeah.
It's a piece of really?
But it changes the way you interact with the device to a large extent. For me, it recalls memories of the flip phone days of yore. I like moving components on my technology. It's just the way I am. And I also like displays that know when a physical object is near them and change their behavior accordingly. Like if you're a notification hound, because this window is so small on this cover, when you pull out your S4 and look at your notifications, you press the side button, it's only illuminating that little bit of the display. All the rest of the display is black. So in theory, that should do a nice, that should give you a nice extra 5% of battery life over the course of a given day, which is pretty cool. You can also answer calls right in the middle of, without opening the flip cover. You can you get a little notification in there, and you can just swipe it. I got a Google Talk message in the middle of my sentence. I got distracted. Somebody sent me a link to a BuzzFeed article about reasons kids are pretty much just tiny drunk adults. That's an awesome headline. I like it.
Just to be clear, you could do that with the S3. Answer without opening the flip cover, but you couldn't see who was calling.
Yeah,
you could just answer with your voice.
What
You're
is
like,
this, 1998?
Answer.
Answer.
just answer the phone. And
Hi,
then
Galaxy. Hi, Galaxy.
my friend, he uses his phone to play music in his car, and that was turned on by default. He got an update, and that was turned on by default after the update. And he didn't know what was going on.
Oh, no.
So he's listening to music in the car, and somebody'd call and it'd answer, and they just start talking. He's like, I didn't mean to call you. And they're like, no, I called you. He's like, oh, well, I didn't want to answer. Like, and stuff like that would happen. And it also plays and pauses the music. So he's playing the music, and sometimes it'll just say like the right thing, or the right combination of words will happen in a song, and the music will pause. or it'll skip a track, and he's just like, and he couldn't figure out how to turn it off because there is no just straightforward way how to turn it off. It's in S voice settings, but he's never used S voice ever.
That's another thing I want to talk about. Samsung, when the S3 came out, Samsung's had, I think it was like their second or third attempt at revitalizing the settings menu, or they like changed it up, and it was so complicated. Like their settings menu was organized so oddly, and I remember talking to Ryan Biden, Samsung's marketing head for Samsung Mobile US or Samsung Electronics, I can't remember at the moment, but he was like, we've definitely already gotten some feedback on that, and your feedback is well taken. Like that's basically all he would say, and I was like, cool, man. Well, thank you for hearing me out on that. He's a cool guy. And then the S4 comes out. And it looks like Samsung really did try to simplify the settings menu some more by instituting some tabs. That seems to be the new thing that OEMs like to do. They like to put tabs in the settings menu. But it doesn't make any sense. Like, under My Device, you do have things like Smart Screen and Air View. Under Connections is network stuff. Like, that makes sense. But you cannot find your phone number under My Device. That's under More, and then it's under About Device, and then it's under Status. You can't find information about your battery and storage under My Device, because apparently those things are not part of My Device. They're also under More. It's just like the My Device tab is like criminally misnamed, and there's some strange stuff going on there. I don't know. I usually don't get like amped about settings menus, but that's not a fun settings menu to be in at all.
Between LG and Samsung, I think they're competing for the most convoluted, confusing, poor user experience settings menu possible.
Right.
Because LG's was separated by network and connections, sound, display, and then like an other tab that just everything
else.
Like, why is sound and display? Why are they separated into their own tabs?
Why are they? Yeah. I don't know.
Why not have a tab for?
I could actually get behind that. I mean, like, if you had a tab for display and a tab for sound, like, okay, I sort of.
Why not put them together?
Well, because they're not the same thing, right? One goes to your ear ball and one goes to your eyeball.
Yeah, but it's just
eardrum, earball,
earball.
Call me earball.
It was just like they picked some random things to give their own tabs.
There must have been some reason. I guess we can't fully grok. I mean, they didn't just choose these at random.
No, they didn't. Like, I'm sure
I think they did. They threw some darts at a wall with some some different settings on the paper, and they're like, yeah, that one. And, you know.
I want to talk about one of the principal advantages of the. First of all, I know we don't want to get too deeply into HTC One versus S4 again, because that's just a never-ending conversation. I want to say real quickly that
unless you read our article.
Well, yeah. Well, just go to the comments then. It's just a never-ending debate. But the thing with the S4 is that it doesn't have front-firing speakers, which is disappointing. But I got to tell you guys, the improvement on the speaker cannot be overstated. How many times am I going to say that this show? That's a dumb. I'm sorry to keep repeating that, but it's true. They have really boosted the amplitude on the speaker and made it quite loud on the S4. Samsung did this presumably by moving the speaker down from its top position on the S3 down to where the Note 2 has it. But it is very nice to have a loudspeaker on a smartphone. That's kind of all I want to say.
Very nice.
That particular thing. But I want to ask you guys about the camera here, because this is an area that mobile sites sometimes get criticized in, because we are certainly not a. I think some of us have more photographic alacrity than others, but some of us really don't know what we're doing with cameras, and I'm just kind of trying to view it through the eyes of a normal consumer who's going to buy one of these phones. So I examine it in as much detail as I can. But I was on the phone with Taylor with a test call from the S4, and I was out in Boston on a beautiful day taking photos, which is one of my favorite parts of my job, is reviewing a camera on a smartphone. And I'm like, Taylor, what is going on with this? Like, I can't get the whole thing in the frame. At the time, I had the S4.
The 4 to 3.
Yes.
Yeah.
I had the S4, the Note 2, the S3, the HTC One, and the Lumia 920. I had them all. And the majority of those phones would capture a whole lot more image. They had a much wider field of view than the S4 did. And he's like, it's probably cropping. I'm like, oh, okay, probably that's what it is. And I go into the settings, and I find that the default setting out of box is 9.6 megapixels at 16 by 9. You could step it up to 13 megapixels at 4 by 3, but there was no option for a 13 megapixels at 16 by 9. Now, is there a math reason I'm missing for why there's no such option?
But it's a sensor reason. That's the shape.
It's
the shape of the
size.
sensor?
Yeah, that's the maximum output of the maximum output resolution of the sensor. The only way to get 13 would to be actually make a wider and shorter sensor.
Which is not practical because they source these sensors by the millions.
Yeah, so to get 16:9, what that means is your sensor is actually larger than it's saying it is, and they crop it down.
Aha.
Like an 8 megapixel that takes 16:9 photos is probably a 13 megapixel sensor with a maximum output of 8 because it's doing max 8 at 16:9. That's just the way I think that's right. That could be
Nokia
wrong.
had a really nice graphic about this when they released the 808 to show, because they had it was an unusual shape for the sensor. It wasn't a standard aspect ratio, I think, but it was designed so that it could do either pretty well. It was still going to crop for both 4 to 3 and 16 to 9.
Well,
but
yeah,
it's sort of
everything on that sensor crops because you can't take, like, it's got a 42 megapixel and it only takes
41, yeah.
41 and it only takes a 38. That's the
Right.
maximum. Is
Right, because its default resolution is not a standard aspect
Right.
ratio.
Yeah.
Okay. So all right, so that makes a degree of sense, and I will admit that this is outside of my league. This is why we get comments like, you guys shouldn't be reviewing cameras, but it's like, no, that's not true, because so many people, the vast majority of people who buy smartphones are also not photography aficionados. They just want to take a nice picture. I can tell you whether this thing takes a nice picture or not, and if you don't believe me, look at the pictures yourself, whatever. But it fascinated me that I was stuck in this situation where every shot I took with the Galaxy S4, I felt like I was too close to my subject. I needed to back up by 2 feet to get the same width field of view as the other devices. And I don't know, does that bother anybody else? Is it just me? It can't just be me, right?
What that is that's actually not the cropping. That's actually
the field of view, right?
That's your focal length is what that is. So you're actually getting. I explained this. I just ballparked the numbers, and actually, according to some other people, I got that actually pretty close to right.
Oh yeah.
The HTC One has, I think it was like a 25 millimeter focal range. I think it's somewhere in that ballpark, like 25, 28, something like that. And the S4 is somewhere like 33, 35, something like that. So it looks like you're a lot closer. It's closer to what your eyes actually see.
What, on the S4?
I think. I don't know what the focal length of the eye is. There's like a true to life, but I can't remember what it is. Oh, we got a message here.
Whenever Taylor's on the show, you can't like surreptitiously like text on the Skype chat, because Taylor will just
Whoa!
oh hey.
Look at there.
There's a link to this awesome article from May 24th of last year.
That's the southern in me. Sorry.
Pixel here, showing the total sensor size of the PureView sensor, and there's some cropping discussion here. That's cool. I should put that in the links of the description of this podcast.
Yeah, you're lucky. You're lucky that I don't like just yell out like a yeehaw or something. it's I don't know what it is, but lately, like my southern, like my roots have been coming out. Listen to bluegrass all day and
just chew on some hay and a rocking chair on your porch.
I got some straw and
alfalfa.
So we're gonna have some more time with the S4 here. There's so much that we haven't gotten to. We have to start sort of thinking about wrapping it up here. But I'm still kind of getting a hold of things. The lag situation is not as bad as everyone is sort of making it. This sort of happens when you introduce any criticism of a device that a lot of people are motivated to defend, in that you will say something like, I can't quote myself exactly, but you say something like, there was a little more lag than I expected from a device like this, but, it's nothing that's going to bother you in day-to-day use. And they kind of seize on that, and next thing you know, 40 commenters are like, how can you say the thing is laggy beyond belief? You're the worst ever. And then the conversation changes to something you don't want it to change to. So what's interesting, though, what I've found, the reason I bring it up, when you can mitigate the lag a bit by turning off some of Samsung's features.
Hey, surprise, surprise.
Exactly, right? And so, once again,
that thing's
why
system
include them?
image?
So
The system image is 1.5 gigabytes.
Is it really?
Yes, it's 1.5 gigabytes. It has 1.5 gigabytes of software on there. The stock 4.2.2 image is I think 150 megabytes or something.
What does it have? Like a 4-minute long 1080p startup animation?
Yeah. Like the
God,
splash screen is a full feature-length film.
Why can you not think about that when you're making this stuff?
So, but
Nobody's using this
Hey.
feature. Let's just throw it away.
Flash is cheap.
yeah, right. But also, I mean, when you have a powerhouse of a device, ours is the Snapdragon 600 powered one. We're getting the Exynos one in a couple days, or maybe tomorrow. Why not throw everything in there? I think is what they're saying. It's exactly what we were talking about before. But it does slow the device down. Like you turn off AirView, and there is a, not maybe detectable to everyone, but there is a small increase in performance. You start to see some of those animations between closing and opening apps kind of get a little smoother. So I don't know. You shouldn't. If you're going to throw features on that impair performance, maybe they should all work really well.
They should all be disabled by default.
Oh, but then nobody's going to
think-
discover them.
Good.
I think it's funny, though, that we're complaining about, if you have these features on, the animations between app switching isn't as smooth. That's another one of these features that is killing our CPU cycles. We're, trading one for another.
Oh, well, that's true. Like if you go into developer mode and disable animations, you really can have a zippy phone. But it sure does look like trash, though.
Well,
Yeah, it's zippy, but it jumps from scene to scene and
Yeah.
it stutters and
Quite jarring. Yeah.
I have to say that your header image for the S4 review. Oh gosh, I'm getting some crazy noise over here.
Well, we ain't getting it over here, so you just keep on talking. You sound great.
My Pebble's going crazy. Sorry. It wasn't on my wrist, and I thought it was. Anyway,
I hate that. When that thing vibrates and it's not on your wrist,
like,
it sounds like the house is falling down.
it didn't before I got this new band. The new band is what makes it just like.
Yeah, I know. It's the metal.
So, oh my
right?
God.
Yeah, I know. That happens to me, too.
I was recording audio one day, and I had it sitting beside the mic, and it was just sitting on the table, and
Forget it.
oh my gosh! But anyway, your header image, the phone looks like it's like slate or graphite, oh my gosh! Why am I blanking?
it looks
here?
like you just came out of a chemical bath or something. Crazy.
Yeah. So that
Like,
was like the sunniest day. That was the same day I was out taking photos, and the sun was out so bright, and it just set off the texture on this phone really well. By the way, I hate how this header image plays with our bands on the top and bottom. I think it looks stupid, but there's nothing I could do about it. But yeah, that texture, if you get in the sunlight, it really shines like it is like you said, like it just came out of a chemical bath. It's awesome. I just wish the hyperglaze wasn't on top of it, because this phone, even more than the S3, is so easily scratchable and picks up grease like it was made to pick up finger oils. And this is the part where everyone calls the reviewer like a sweaty, slothful, like French fry eating dude, but it's not. I'm like, my hands are clean, but when I touch the S4 thinks my hands have been in the middle of some like bacon and cheddar potatoes. I don't know. I don't know how best.
It's like a baby oil bath.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's funny. I was just going to jump to something else. I was kind of going into listener mail to see if there was anything else going on there. Oh, guys, Excelsior's SSD trade-up program maximizes your tech investment. Speaking of spam.
Nice. Stephen, what you were saying about Flash being cheap, there are two sides to that.
Yeah.
Flash chips, I guess NAND chips that we see like built-in storage is not nearly as cheap as, say, a micro SD card.
This is very true.
Yeah, so there is that. Now,
But I mean, there's so much of it, though. If we're talking about the difference between 100 megs and a gigabyte, that's just a fraction of what the total space is on a 32 gigabyte phone. I think they can afford that sort of luxury with the operating system. We still have plenty. I mean, this isn't like the Surface where it's taking up like 40% of the total storage by the default apps and OS.
But it's close.
At least
It's just, I mean, but the storage before, like on a 16 gigabyte device, you get like the storage, the system image isn't 4 gigabytes, but you might only get 12 gigabytes of user available storage. Mm-hmm. So there's that. That's just the system image, like when everything's packed up, not
after
open and running.
installation.
Yeah.
You know what we need? We need to do this on Ustream eventually, and we've been thinking about this for months and months. But I would love a comment feed right now, because we're going to be talking about the S4 on the Pocket Now Live tomorrow, and we're going to be getting reader comment and questions and things like that, and it's going to be fun. And I think next week we're also going to launch a reader-intensive review series starting with the S4. So we're going to get reader comment on this, listeners, but we would love to institute a system where you can comment in real time on the podcast, and I am going to try and make that happen, FYI. So
yeah, I was going to ask you when we were going live. So.
Yeah, we'll be doing that. Do not worry. And
I have experience with that.
But then we can't curse so much and edit it out.
Well, actually, I don't think that the live show, like we can edit it out later to preserve our iTunes clean tag and whatever. But the live broadcast, I mean, we can do kind of whatever we want.
Hey now.
Hey. Except, you know. Hey, Griffin.
Hey, everybody.
That's
you
uncanny.
Are my favorite person right now. That's awesome.
Hey, Peter.
Let me look at. I'm looking at listener mail here, and I think this may be indicative of where our readership is coming from in terms of devices, because I'm looking at our listener mail, and there are many new pieces of listener mail, and thank you, listeners, for bringing them in, sending them in, shooting them to us. But
little does he know that they're all me with fake accounts.
Taylor Martin, a.k.a. Khalid William Marcos. So the thing is this, though. None of these pieces of email, not a single one, references the Galaxy S4.
Wow. That's actually impressive.
Isn't that impressive? Like, you would think that people...
Well, impressive in a weird sense.
It's odd. So, and that brings me to a question that I will use to kind of wrap us up here, guys. And listeners, I'm sorry. We'll have to get to your mail on the next show, because I have to go shoot yet more videos of the S4. I have to. I get to. But this brings me to a question, guys. Like, we've talked in large part this past hour or so about kind of how disappointed we are in the S4, how much it got wrong, some of the things it got right. But I think the real focus here for a lot of people in the jaded tech media is that this is not bringing what we wanted, all the things we wanted to the table, outside of things like the display and so on. But how well do you think this is going to sell? This is a real softball of a question, but I actually want to hear your honest responses. Starting with Steven, because Taylor gets to wait this time.
I can see no world in which all of these problems we've been nitpicking about have a significant impact on Galaxy S4 sales. It's going to sell like golden hotcakes. I mean, the average user they're going to be impressed by all the hype Samsung's been doing about this. They're not going to care that things don't work as well as they should, because while we have these problems with Smart Stay and all that, they do work. And people will see that, and they're just going to assume, oh, well, I'm doing something wrong. But the phone is fast, and it looks nice, so I can live with it. I'm not going to make a big stink about it. So I think it's going to sell fantastically. This is going to be another Galaxy S3.
The extent of those... Yeah, well, yes. Yeah, definitely. It's going to sell. It's going to sell really well. But the extent of what those features are going to be used are when they're being pitched on the device, when they're in the carrier store being pitched on the device, and when they're showing them to their friends.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's the extent of what 90% of Samsung's new features are going to be used.
And they work well enough to demo like that.
Exactly.
They do. Yeah.
They're enough to sell the device, and that's really, I think, all Samsung really cares about for now. Maybe an update will fix that, but right now, from what you're telling me and from what I've experienced myself with Samsung devices, I really feel like those features are built to sell, not necessarily to use every day, day in and day out, but to say, hey, look what this can do, and bam, it's marketing. It's marketing.
That is a fair point, and you are absolutely right that it is. These features do work well enough to demo in the retail store. They definitely work well enough to demo to friends. I do enjoy one of the.
They worked well enough. They worked well enough to hold a show, like a Broadway show, to show off the device.
Oh God, no! Nothing worked well enough to sell that evening of disaster.
Every launch event should be like that.
Yeah,
but you know what?
Like
one of the
fight.
No, I want to talk about that. I just touch on that very briefly. One of the most understated features about this device is when you get close to the screen, the lock screen responds to your presence. It responds to your proximity, and there's this little firefly-like sprite that follows your finger around as you dance around the lock screen, and that. Like that is I don't think I even mentioned that in the review. Like it's so completely innocuous. It's so the 40 millionth thing on the list of things this phone can do. But that is the number one thing that people have shown this device to have been impressed by. They're like, oh my God, it's following me.
That's exactly my point. Like Samsung knows marketing, and that's why they're doing so well. They know ads. They know how to get the device in the carrier store, and the most important part of that, getting the people behind the counter to sell it.
Yeah.
They have all these features that they can show off on the HTC One. What is someone behind the counter going to show you? The hardware is great.
Blink feed.
Blink feed.
Yeah.
Zoe.
Right.
Boom. Done.
Yeah. And those are not demo-friendly features. They're great to use. They're not great to sell. Yeah.
Exactly. So when you look at those three things versus the stack of about 50 or 60, maybe 70, or maybe even 10,000 things the Galaxy S4 does over the HTC One, that's where it's going to perform better to people who don't know what these devices are. When they walk in the store, they just want a new phone. They're based in the same price point, and this one does more.
It's hookier.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we see this distortion field. I'm going to steal that term. We see this distortion field online, in the comments, in the articles. From our perspectives, we see that the HTC One is a better device for, specific use cases and what our needs are. But these people who don't know anything about it at all, they see the more features, that's where their money goes. And that's where Samsung sells 50 million of these things, 60. This might be their best-selling device to date.
I agree. And do you think that, this will be my last question here, do you think that Samsung will change its direction for the next generation of either Note or S device? Do you think that they're feeling enough pressure from mainly the media, because consumers haven't really been commenting too much outside of forums? Do you think they feel enough pressure to make the next Galaxy out of higher-end materials? Or do you think they're going to stick with their plastic?
Plastic.
They have no reason to change.
Interesting.
Yep. We are the vocal minority.
Yeah, absolutely.
That shows in sales numbers.
Right.
Their reasoning for using plastic is because it's so durable and light, resilient.
Build phones cheaply. They hold up well enough. Why make things more difficult for themselves?
Right.
You drop a 1, what happens? That thing's going to get dented, probably.
Do you have
From
your
what
one
I'm
yet?
told, what?
Do you have your one yet? Has it arrived today?
No, but from what I'm told, the one that I'm getting has a dent in it.
Yeah, it has a big pit in the bezel. Yeah, we talked about it last week. Yeah. So you're right. Yeah, there's that. But also Samsung is very focused on making a light device. Like their argument, their philosophy is, and it makes sense, if you're going to carry this thing around all the time, then it has to be as light as possible. You don't want it to be a burden.
Our phone is going to be as big as your head. It better not pull your pants down when you put it in your pocket.
Boom. Boom. New quote of the hour.
Copy
new
right
hour,
there.
new quote. Yeah, exactly.
Won't pull your pants down.
Hold on. Actually, hold on 1 second. The doorbell. Hold on.
Oh, FedEx time. Stephen Taylor's expecting a shipment of new Android figurines for his videos.
Ah, lovely.
That man has to have like 50 or 60 figurines by now. It's amazing.
Figurines are fun.
Figurines are great. No, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. All I'm saying is I'm sitting here in my studio, which I formerly felt proud about, but my fading Angry Birds need a little, I got to ask Brandon to send me some more plush Angry Birds.
I don't have any Android toys. I have phones lying around, but
You don't make
Skull up here, but that's not the same.
You don't make videos though, so it's all right. Like you can You're on the news desk, like chain smoking cigarettes and like pounding whiskeys,
Slamming down coffee, yeah. Or like Tony with the cigars.
All right.
Hey, Taylor's back. Is it figurines or is it an HTC One?
It is an HTC One. Are we doing a podcast unboxing?
That's so awesome! First ever podcast unboxing. Yeah.
Listen to me.
Can we hear the unboxing tool?
Nice.
Yeah.
Can you peel off the screen protector? There is no screen protector.
No, just say that. You can't hear that great sound.
Yeah.
You can hear the box ripping open.
Yeah.
I'm glad it's a one and not the figurines because I'm more excited about the one.
I would have been pretty excited about the figurines. I'm not going to lie.
I know you would have been.
Did you see the list of ones I bought?
I did not.
Oh, gosh. Look at the link.
I don't have enough time.
You bought all of these?
We got to listen to you on. By the way,
Yes.
I love that. I love that the HTC One is somehow upstaging the Galaxy S4 podcast with this live arrival. That's hilarious.
Yeah. There's plastic. There was plastic.
There was plastic. Oh, I heard it.
All right. Where's this big ding? These aren't big dings. You guys had me all worried. These are tiny dings.
Oh, good.
On a device that isn't mine, I don't care. Oh, there's a big dent in the back.
There you go.
Oh, God. What did Brandon do? Kick the thing down the road?
I think he just threw this thing at a wall. Let's see how it stands up.
HTC One durability test.
Yeah, all right.
It is funny. Just a little bit of so the durability test was originally part of After the Buzz. Or it still is, really. But then I just woke up one day and Brandon had done this durability test video. And I'm like, oh, so I guess we're doing these now. Okay. This is a separate thing? Okay. So, go ahead.
Whoa.
Hey, champ.
That's some boom sound right there.
Boom sound.
Boom sound. Hashtag boom sound. All right, we do have to wrap it up, though, gents. And I'm glad that your HTC One is in.
Me
Taylor,
too.
I'm glad you will have. So, Taylor, I imagine you will be getting one of these Galaxy S4s as well, just because we need to get other people's eyes on, hands on with this device from other members of the team. Maybe just so that some of the heat can be taken off of me for crapping all over Samsung, even though 5 months ago everyone was saying I was a Samsung fanboy. So it's make up your minds, jerks.
Between editorials, I switched between an iPhone fanboy and an Android fanboy. So
Between editorials in the same week?
Yeah. Oh, no, the same day. I had two. Last time, when I worked for Phone Dog, I had two editorials in one day. I wrote one about positive Android and one about negative Android, and
you were.
I went from being an Android fanboy to an iPhone fanboy.
Steven, do you ever get any of this heat on the news side of
Absolutely.
things?
And because I'm all over the place doing Windows Phone, BlackBerry, and whatnot, people think that I have allegiances everywhere and against everywhere. I could care less.
I was just going to say,
it just runs right off me.
Yeah. Oh man, that's great. But you also do editorials, I should mention, and they are great. I love your editorials.
Thank you. I wish the readers felt the same.
It has been good while we're talking about you, Stephen. It has been great to have you back on the air. I'm sorry it was such a long time, but man, you and your karaoke mic sound great. I would love to have you back on the show soon.
Logitech knows how to build a quality video game accessory. What can I say?
That's what I've always heard.
Taylor, it was great being back.
Good. It was great to have you. And tell me exactly. Tell me what part of Pennsylvania you're coming. You're not coming from Pennsylvania. You're coming from Maryland. Where are you coming from?
No. I'm in Princeton.
Yes.
Jersey boy.
Yes, Princeton, New Jersey. I like it. Well, it was good to have a little bit of Jersey on the podcast today.
Just a little bit, though. You never want too much.
You can over. It's like Boston. You can overdo it. You can overdo it on the heaping helpings of each city, or state, whatever geography. Taylor, are you just fully
We've
immersed
lost
in
him.
setting up your HTC One? Are you?
Oh,
have you left
what?
the building?
Talking to me? No, I was actually looking at an email from Time Warner and reveling in how much I hate their emails. They're like, your online statement is available, but the beginning part of their email, the subject is account alert.
Account alert, everything's fine.
I'm like, oh God, yeah, you owe us money.
I think it's
next month.
I think it's good that we're wrapping up on topic. That's nice. We're finishing as we started.
Yes.
And that is
Can't ever
That will serve as your weekly reminder that the podcast is a casual listening environment, listeners.
Yes.
So,
yeah, I am on here because I'm meant to derail the conversation.
Yeah, Taylor
You don't-
exists to give us bad segues into nonsense.
You
Keeping it
don't
fresh.
ask me to be on the podcast expecting me to stay on topic. That just doesn't. No.
No. Well,
Is that why you've asked me to be on the podcast for the past 6 weeks?
yeah, pretty much. Also, I like to hear about your Android figurines.
Well,
Listeners-
these aren't Android.
No.
These
Adventure
you need to check them out.
I don't
Look
want
at
to
the
check
link.
them out. I don't want to check them. I'm not going to. I'm actually just going to wait until I watch your next video. So in July,
Spoiler. I'll give you
check
one of them. Spoiler. I posted one on Twitter, but spoiler. One is Psy, Gangnam Style.
In that case, I'm never going anywhere near any of those figurines. I hate. Can I say it right now? I hate Gangnam Style.
What about the new
I hate
video,
it. I don't. I
gentlemen?
didn't. Even, I hated
Gentlemen.
Gangnam Style so hard that I didn't even get close
Wow.
to. Yeah, I know. I'm that guy. I'm the one guy who hates
You're
it.
such a hater.
Right? Oh God.
I got it because it's just there's no explanation for why I would ever have a Psy figurine, but
Do you guys?
I do.
Do you guys know what I'm doing tonight?
I don't. You know what I'm doing tonight?
I don't care.
I don't.
because I'm doing something awesome. I'm going to watch the best episode maybe in the history of Star Trek: The Next Generation at the movie theater tonight. I'm watching the Best of Both Worlds Parts 1 and Part 2 at Regal Fenway 18 or whatever the hell it is. So that means I have a video to shoot before I go. That means a second thing. It means Stephen, you get to be jealous. It means a third thing, Taylor. I don't know. Shut up. And it means
I get that a lot.
it means a fourth thing. In truth, it has been a pleasure to have you both on the show, but we do need to wrap it up. And with that, we are going to go. This has been a special edition episode of the Pocket Now Weekly featuring the Samsung Galaxy S4. Find us on Twitter. Stephen never tweets, but he is at Stephen Schenk.
I'll listen to your tweets if you
Yeah.
feel like tweeting at me.
I do it all the time. I mention you, even though you don't.
Bless your heart.
Taylor Martin is at Casper Tech, CASPERTEK.
And I am the complete opposite. I tweet 50 million times a day.
Very frequently, and as do I. You can find me at Captain Two Phones. You can follow Pocket Now officially at Pocket Now on Twitter, as Pocket Now on Facebook, Google+. Leave us a review on iTunes or Xbox Music. And if you have some topics or questions for us, or you just want to say hello, we will get to your mail eventually. podcast@pocketnow.com. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week.
Bye, everybody. But I can't send you a link of the figurines that are coming in. I will send you a screen cap. As
Okay.
this is the order.
Figurines?
Figurines. These are the ones that are coming in. I needed more because I felt bad. Like yesterday, I shot the iPhone.
Wait. We're doing that thing where we talk, we have a conversation before we're on the air, and then we have to have the same stilted conversation after we go on the air.
What's wrong with that?
I
I like
hate it.
repeating myself.
Act surprised this time.
No, yeah.